Yeah. As you can see, I ain't got no haircut, y'all. But I still want to go in. I was talking to a friend of mine, collaborator of mine, Terrell Scott, and he was saying you need to tell your story. And it's like, it's hard to go through. He was like, man, go in chronological order. I might not do the chronological order, but, I do want to give stories, give a little context, because, my life had ups and downs, and a lot of moments that may have been traumatic, that I just lived through. I coped with it and dealt with it how I could. So I wanted to get into it. As you know, this the Let's Get To It podcast, and that's a tool with a U, because I always got you in mind. And I am King Sam, the dirtbag. If you heard something about me that's crazy, 9 times out of 10 it's probably true. So, I just wanted to get in it a little bit, get a little bit of my background. I'm from Virginia, Newport News, Virginia. That's where I spend most of my time. I was born in Germany on a military base. My father was stationed out there, and I was born out there. I don't have too many recollections of that, because I think we came back stateside when I was around maybe 2 years old. Sometime I was too young to remember. Maybe that's a question I could ask Mom Dukes or my pops. They separated when my brother was born, shortly after my brother was born, and I'm a year and a half older than him. Like right at a year. He born on the 28th of June. I'm born on December the 29th. So it's a year and a half I'm older than him. And when he was born, I think he was small. They separated. They weren't married. They got a divorce. And I think my mom's and dad, they met in New Jersey. Somewhere, New Brunswick, New Jersey, Elizabeth, I think New Brunswick to be exact. I'm not for sure, but I think they met in New Jersey. I think my father and my uncle may have been friends. I don't have too much. All I have is some of the stories that I could pry up out of them when I do have conversations with them. But that's my earliest memories. I can remember a Halloween staying with my pops, but my mom wasn't there. And I remember getting sick and throwing up from Halloween candy. I can remember my pops getting into an altercation with another man. And to my understanding now, he took the man's life. I remember the situation vaguely. For a while I had suppressed it and didn't even remember the situation at all. I had to be like, I say close to 3 years old. So at that time, your mind ain't functioning. You can't process what you seeing no way. All I can remember was him standing there with a hammer in his hand, looking off into, the sky. The image was just, I didn't know. I remember him saying, don't look. And I think I was trying to look. I don't recall much of it, because I think at that time it probably was so traumatic. It was an overload to my senses, because it took me to get almost into my 30s and 40s to even remember that. And I booted that right out of my head. So it's like, there's no telling what I did see. I probably had to do a deep dive to figure out. All I can remember was him standing there with a hammer, him telling me, don't look, seeing sirens, hearing sirens and cop cars. And I remember going with my grandmother, Willie Mae Martin, rest in peace to Willie Mae Martin. That's my father's mother. She was staying in, I think the Riverside Towers. They real close situated to Rutgers University. She used to work at Rutgers doing like cleanup services and stuff. I don't know what her exact job title is. I do remember her working there at Rutgers. And some of my first memories is of her. She was sitting there. I just remember the night. It was lightning and thunder. We have one of the upper apartments in those towers and Riverside Towers, and I could just remember the thunder and the lightning. It seemed so close. I know I could talk a little bit because she was trying to feed, she had some kidney beans and she was trying to feed me some kidney beans, and I was like, I don't want to eat no kidneys. And she just, started cracking up laughing. It's like, they not kidneys, they kidney beans. And, she seemed very loving to me. She seemed very loving. The next thing you know, I see a woman for the first time that I can remember, because the only faces I can associate with my life at that time was my father and my grandmother. They both look similar. I can't say they look like me per se, because I couldn't see me. I could just know them, and I knew who they were. I knew that was my father, and I knew that was my grandmother. So now my mother enters the picture, because when they separated, I think my father still had custody of me and my brother. And when he got into that altercation, he wound up getting incarcerated, going to jail. So my grandmother, she arranged for my mother to come pick us up. At the time, my mother was living in Virginia. I don't know if it was Richmond, Virginia, or it was Newport News, Virginia. I think my grandmother, her mother, had relocated from Jersey. I think she was also staying in Jersey, from Jersey to, I think it was Richmond, Virginia first, then Newport News, Virginia. So she relocated to Newport News, Virginia, right there off of Huntington Ave. It's Shipyard Parking now. There was a small red house over there about what street is that? I can't even think of the bridge that is. It's a bridge that comes right across. I don't know if it's 38th. Pembroke is Pembroke on one side, and I think it's like 38th, 39th, whatever. That bridge right there. She stayed in that area right there on Huntington Ave, and I think she owned the house. I don't know what happened, but I think she owned the house. But she wound up relocating from there and wound up moving to Richmond. But from there, I think my mother was staying with her, and then she wound up getting her own spot in Walker Village. Now, at the time when my mother picked us up, all I remember is seeing a woman that was very excited at the airport. She was hugging and kissing. I'm trying to get away because at the time, I'm 3 years old. I don't know who she is. I didn't know who this woman was. She kept saying, "I'm your mama." I'm like, "Mama, I never seen you before. I don't know who you are." And, I was trying to protest, but she was, I'm little, so she just snatched me up. I could walk. I think my brother, he was at this time, if I'm 3, he got to be 1 and some change. So he may have been walking. I think he could walk, but he was, not too sure on his feet. So I think she had him in one arm and had me in her hand. She was very excited, and I didn't know who this. She wasn't our complexion. I said, "Man, who is this?" That's all I could get in my mind is, who is this? And, I wasn't coherent of everything, but it was just one of those traumatic moments. Now, a lot of times, what I've been doing lately, I'm 47 years old. At the end of the year, top of the year, 29th, I'll be, December the 29th, I'll be 48. So, after you get to live a lot of life, you try to, work your way backwards and make sense of your life. So, introspection. And that's what I've been doing a lot lately. And now I talk to my mom. And I say, "You remember anything about me?" And she was like, "Yeah, you ain't like to fight. And you used to think everything was funny. You used to laugh at everything." So, and I can remember, when she said that, I could remember those times. So, here we is, Newport News, Virginia. Is Walker Village apartments. At that time, this had to be like 80. They were fairly new. We out there. There's a lot of families, a lot of different personalities. And I can remember, to me, it just, I just wanted to play with my little toys. I just wanted to have fun. Have fun. So I guess when she say, the laughter part of me, I just wanted to have fun. I wasn't thinking about, you know, any like any problems. That was the furthest thing from my mind. So all I can remember from being young is wanting to have fun, wanting to play, and I can remember, a lot of times it seemed like I was getting into situations to where I didn't want to be a part of, and maybe I didn't want to fight, maybe I was scared. Ain't no knock on being scared. I was a young one, and I can remember like one time, there was a kid that stayed across the parking lot from me, Rocky. We was outside playing and he want to fight, and I couldn't understand. Now I can look back and see somebody new. Little kids, you go back and forth, you don't understand what you're doing. And I just, in my mind, I was like, why you want to fight? I ain't do nothing to him. And he was adamant. I think he hit me a couple times. I wouldn't have told my mama. She come outside. She like, get off my baby, leave him alone. And his grandmother come out. They get to fighting. I think my mom whooped up on his grandmother, and it was just a situation. But over and over as a child, I can remember situations like that or similar where, I ain't want no altercations. I ain't want no problems. I just wanted to have fun. I wanted to play. I thought everything was about having fun and playing, and I ain't get the consequence or the magnitude, or you gotta fight. And I think I was caught up in a lot of situations to where, in an altercation I would freeze up. I didn't know what to do. And my mom, she would be like, you gotta fight back. You gotta do this and gotta do that. And she wanted us to be tough. She wanted me and my brother to be tough. If somebody jumping on your brother, you help him out. You don't let your brother, don't come back home and you help him out. So, from a young age, I think that was drilled into me, because then my mother's brother, which is my Uncle Tony, came around, and he was wild at the time. I think he was like 18 years old when he came to stay with us. And he was wild. He was very wild, and he liked to fight. He liked everything. He liked guns. He liked stealing. he was a youth, and he was like, I don't know whether he got in trouble up in New York or he just wanted to stay with my mother, because I think my mother had custody of him for a little while, because when we was born in Germany, he was there. He stayed in Germany with my mother and father. When I was born, when they was out there, stationed out there. So, I don't know how much younger. He may be around 8 years younger than my mother, but on some levels, I think she took care of him, so to speak. They got a crazy relationship. So, I get into that a little bit later. But when he came around, woo, man, he try to drill into me about fighting, and once you get into it with your friends, y'all not friends no more. He used to have me up late nights, training me, because my father, I think he knew Taekwondo, if I'm not mistaken. He picked that up in the military, and he taught my uncle. And my uncle, being that my father wasn't staying with us, he was still in Jersey, my uncle saw fit that that's what he was going to pass down to me at the time. I don't know if he got around to teach my brother, but I know he used to be on me. Had me in there doing stretches, had me in there doing all types of hand blocks, had me in there doing kicks, had me in there doing crescent kicks. Oh man, it was crazy, man, even to the point where he had me put my hand in simmering hot water. And it just, I didn't understand what he was doing at the time. I just, being that it was my uncle, I trusted him. He was telling me sometimes, just because you think it hurt, it don't hurt. And man, he used to be like drilling me and some of this stuff. At the time, I think I was so young that, I didn't know what I was learning. I didn't know how to apply it. I just remember some of the stuff because, Like in Walker Village, Newport News, it was a lot of kids, a lot of people my age, and I think everybody was vying to see who was the, make a name for themselves, see who was the toughest. So I could just remember a lot of times, getting into situations, getting into fights. And my uncle was staying with us for a period of time. So he'll be looking out the window like, do this, horse stance, do that, do what I taught you, don't you be scared, do this. Like just talking me through the fight, coaching me through the fight, and I couldn't hear nothing but his voice. And it was just like, man, time after time. And like, to be honest, it wasn't my nature to fight because I always felt like I didn't want to be here fighting. I wish it was another way we could deal with this situation besides us trying to hurt each other. And, I was a little bit strong for my, I was always skinny back then. A little, probably average height to a little bit taller for my age group. But I think my mom, she started me in school early, a year early. So I think first grade, I may have been 4 years old when I first started that year. So even though I was tall for my size, the people that was my age usually weren't in the same grade and circles as me. And, the people that I'm in class with maybe a year or two older than me or something like that, I'm around their size, maybe a little bit on the skinny side, but height-wise, I was around their size. So, I'm always finding myself in situations to where, I didn't want to fight. Some of these guys I knew were stronger than me, even though I was strong for who I was. I knew they were stronger than me. I knew they were older than me. I was like, man. And my uncle used to be like, man, don't let the size scare you. Don't let that, you got it. You can handle this. And I'm like, why is him, my mother, and other people and people in the neighborhood, they felt like gladiator schools, like they training you to fight, they training you to be mean. And my uncle used to raise dogs as well. So I used to see the process of him, he used to call it, we used sizing up your dog, getting to him, messing with him, making sure like he not the nicest, he not the friendliest, that he like is agitating. I felt like he was using those same techniques with me, like shaking me up, pinch me always, getting me like a little bit irritated, so I already have a demeanor of anger, like I got a chip on my shoulder already. And it seemed like that was the direction people in my life wanted me to go. And I'm watch TV, so I was like, man, this ain't what they not doing this on TV. Like, why my life have to be like this? That's all I can remember thinking in those terms. But it was like, I guess the real world will show you something different than what you actually. TV is TV. The real world is the real world. So I can just remember, all throughout my youth, just getting into situations that I necessarily wouldn't have caused or wouldn't want to be a part of, but just in there, whether it's like, for instance, I remember this guy I used to hang with named Sinclair. And, I think he was about 6 months older than me. So we used to always go back and forth with, who was in charge of our group when we hanging out. And, I felt like I could beat Sinclair. He was 6 months older than me. And like maybe a half inch shorter than me. He might have been bigger than me, but I was like, man, you can't fight better than me, man. He ain't had nobody training him to fight like I did. But, even though I wasn't applying everything I learned, I knew I could, handle him. So, every time we get together, man, there's always like a tension, some sort of rivalry. And it's like, I think we got in about 3 fights. 3 fights. And, I didn't used to like fighting on him. I think he used to push the envelope as far as, wanting to fight. And I'd be like, man, why you can't be, why you want to fight, man? Let's play. Nah. So, I think we had gotten to 3 fights. And then the last fight, not the last one, the one before the last, I think we was in class. It was him and his sister and me was all in the same class. I think me and him got to fight, and his sister tried to get in and help her brother or break it up, and I'm fighting both of them. And that was the, you know, at that point, you know, my uncle was already telling me, man, that's not your real friend. If you're your friend, why is y'all fighting? Friends don't fight like that. So he was like, once you fight somebody, y'all can't be friends no more because you can't trust them. But I like, man, what is it talking about? I never processed that type of information like that back then. I was too young. So, you know, our last fight, you know, I don't know why we got into it, man. We wound up fighting and, you know, I'm whooping him. He couldn't beat me. I don't think he was as strong as me. And I had an edge on him. So, you know, I'm beating him up and you want to fight again? I think we fought like 3 times. And, you know, I didn't want to fight none of the times. He was trying to, I guess, get him a win in before he say that's it. But, you know, I ain't want to fight. So I think I went in the house. He banging at the door for me to come out. I don't even think my mom was home at the time. Because I know she would have said something, broke up the fight. She would have sent him home. But he banging on the door. I'm in the house, and I'm like, man, something just came over me. Like, in Walker Village, so people don't break in your house, we used to put these little sticks in the back window to stop people from opening. Because they had the locks, but you could jimmy the locks and just open the window. So we used to put the stick in it diagonally or straight across. I grabbed the stick, opened up the window. I don't even know what told me to keep the stick in my hand. I kept the stick in my hand, and I came out the back window, the kitchen back window to the front door. He banging on the door, boom, 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 boom. And I'm looking at him for about 10 seconds. And he banging on the door. He wanted to fight. Man, I looked at the stick, and something came on. Bow, I hit him on the head like 2-3 times. And all I could see is blood just sprouting out his head. And I was like, oh, man. I don't even know what made me do it. I just ain't want to fight no more. So he crying, he looking at me. He still got rage in his heart. But I guess, when he seen and felt the blood coming out his head, he done ran off in the crowd out there. After they seen that, they looking at me crazy. They dispersed. So I go in the house. I think him and my mom, they get in an arguing match over the situation. I told her what happened. She ain't do nothing to me. She ain't seem proud. She ain't seem disappointed. Because I guess that at that time, that probably was expected. So, you know, I don't know. It just seemed like a lot of times in my life, it was those type of situations to where I necessarily wasn't looking for a fight. I think I knew how to fight pretty good for my size and my age. And I wasn't trying to fight. Like my mom said, it take a lot for you to fight because my mind was somewhere else. And I just ain't want to. And I think that's my whole demeanor in life. Because like I spoke to a lot, and there's a lot of things she told me that, you know, I had to recalibrate myself in life. Because I'm gonna take it back. One of the things that she said, you know, is I like to laugh a lot. And I could just remember in every situation, we could get a whooping. I'm making a joke out of that. And it's just like when we was younger, I think I may have been a catalyst for me and my brother getting in trouble for laughing over something that, you know, my mother probably felt wasn't funny. But to me, I used to just try to make a light of it because some of the situations might have been a little bit too much for me. It might have been a little bit too much for me, and I couldn't handle the situation. So, only thing I could do is like get some sort of joy out of it, like making a joke about the situation, laughing about it, you know, making my brother laugh, and that'll make everything all right to me. And my mother, she also told me, like, you know, when I was first going to school, she was saying you got comprehension problems. She said that's what they said in school, that you wasn't processing. And, you know, I never thought about it. I never thought about it. I think I said something on a different episode where I was saying, you know, when I went to New Jersey, they ran up put me in a remedial class. And the whole time I was in the remedial class, I didn't even know it was remedial. I thought it was a reading class. That's how remedial I was. So it's like, I didn't know, I didn't process it, I didn't even think about it, but they had me in that class, and once I realized I was in, I was trying to do everything I could to get out. But that takes me back to what my mother was saying. They said I couldn't process. And like I said, I started a little bit early. I was in first grade. I think I may have had issues because before we went to school, our mom, she used to try to homeschool us. Well, not try, she used to homeschool us. Take us, we had like a closet behind the door when you come in the house in Walker Village. It was an oversized closet, large enough, of the size of 2 bathrooms or like a large bathroom. And she had it set up with books and all types of stuff. So before we was going to school, she was teaching us ABCs, how to count, all that stuff. But I think I may have had problems because it was a different style of learning. So when I got to school, I was more used to, the one-on-one interactions that I had for her. For when I didn't understand things, she would, go over it and over it and over it until I got it. In school, I don't remember that because I can remember several times in school, me not understanding something and like raising my hand, asking for help, trying to work my way through it, letting the teacher know I don't understand. And they were like, this ain't the time, you slowing down the class, this, that. And it got to the point to where I just got ashamed or scared to ask for help, because every time I asked for help, I was kind of, ridiculed or made, to look less than. So I was like, man, if I ask for help, I'm being, poked at, made fun of, and I'm not getting the help. What use is it to keep asking for help? So, first grade, second grade, fourth grade, I just stopped. I stopped caring. I think I was getting all D's and F's all the way up to, I say, probably high school, because I wasn't applying myself. I wasn't doing no work. Like, I can remember not doing work and not even thinking about it. Like, PE, recess, that's all I was. Lunch, I sit there, I wasn't making too much fun. If something kind of caught my attention, I would apply myself to it. Like, I used to like vocabulary, and I used to like history, social studies, and stuff like that, or whatever other class that I thought was fun. But if I didn't, myself feel like it caught my interest, I wasn't even applying myself. I didn't care, because I can remember, like in fourth grade, man, I didn't do no work. I go to class, it's time to turn in work. I grab somebody else's work, erase their name with the smudge and everything, put my name on it. I wasn't even thinking about it. I didn't even process it. I didn't, man. I was struggling, I guess. And I don't know how much of that is my processing ability. I don't know how much of it was, not having that one-on-one that I think I grew familiar with my first educational experience with my mom. I just know, school-wise, I didn't think I was dumb. It's just, I don't think I processed stuff the same way everybody else did, and I suffered. And, when I tried to reach out and get help, it was like a roadblock or a challenge. So I wound up I shut down. And I didn't overcome this until, I would say, 9th or 10th grade when I was in New Jersey. It was a little bit challenging because I think their curriculum is a little bit more stringent than it is in Virginia. So when I got up there, like I said, they had placed me in remedial classes, and, I was made to feel like I was slow. I was starting to feel like they thought I was slow. And, when I used to bring home terrible grades, my mom she ain't get mad. She'd be like, long as you tried your best. Now, at the time she was saying it, I ain't really think about it. I thought I was going to get in trouble for bringing home bad report cards or bad interim reports. And all she ever said was, long as you trying your best. I should have picked up back then, but like, I ain't know. My brother, he was a little sharper than me. He used to get A's and B's, stayed on the honor roll. I'm sitting here failing, and she used to sit, take time with him, dedicate time to him, helping him, encouraging him, drawing out the best. But on the other hand, when I was failing, I don't think she even thought about it. I don't think she cared. I think she had just, chalked me up and was like, hey, as long as you did your best. And that was the same sentiment my father had. So maybe they did know. Maybe they did know and they just want to put it on me and but maybe they did know. Maybe they. So, 9th, 10th grade, having to face that head on, I took it as a challenge. And I said to myself, man, I got to do better. I got to do as much as I can. I don't care if I'm taking time from other people in class. I don't care if the teacher don't know how to deal with me and me having to have specific needs, some one-on-one time. They're going to give it to me. I'm not going to be in here failing because I ain't put in the effort. So it's like I started applying myself. I started, as hard as it was, studying more, doing more homework, being in the class and, hogging up the teacher's time sometime. But I didn't want to get the F's no more, so I just did more and I applied myself more. So, this was, I would say, in my high school years, and when I came back to Virginia in the end of the 10th grade year, I was getting C's, B's, and there was one no more, occasional D, occasional F, but I balanced it out so I was getting an ABC honor roll, But by that time, I was a little bit behind as far as, I wasn't on a par with my math. Like I was probably a little bit behind, but at this point now I'm getting good grades, so I'm thinking I'm in the right direction. And when we was young, we used to bounce back in between New Jersey and Newport News, Virginia. We was out in New Brunswick, New Jersey at first. And I think my father, he moved to, I want to say, was it Pembroke, New Jersey? It's close to Fort Dix. And I think my brother came up with me, but he wound up going back home, so I wound up staying there, by myself for a while. Ooh, that was a time that kind of hurt, because before that, that he was a constant. Even when we was moving back before between moms and pops, we used to be together, so it was a constant that, he's a constant part of my life. We had that brotherly connection. And how old was I? I want to say I was 12 years old. He might have been 11. I think it was in the summertime. We wind up going up there. We were staying with my cousin Janie. Was my mother's cousin. Her name is Janie. And what was this? Amityville, New York. I think. Well, let me backtrack it. My mom, she had a boyfriend. Her boyfriend used to put hands on her. And one time when he was putting hands on her, she was calling out to me and my brother, so we tried to get in there and intercede. I think, he picked me and my brother up, he threw us, and my mom, she just snapped. I think that was all. And she know how to fight. I don't know why she used to let this man hit on her like this, because she is very active when it comes to physicality. And I think she know martial arts or as well. My pops used to give her a little tidbits here and there. So, once he did grab her or grab us, and I think he slinged my brother, then he picked me up and pushed me. My mom, she pulled out a knife out the kitchen, and the guy got scared. He was trying to, I think the aggression just left out on him when he seen the size of the knife. It was a large knife. Tried to throw a flower pot at her. She poked the flower pot split in half. Then she jugged at him and cut his forearm real good. So he got real scared, then ran out. I think he was in the kitchen, stuck in the kitchen. He wound up, I don't know if he crawled out the back kitchen or he went out the door, but I know he was trying to keep her in. She was trying to get out the house, and he was holding her. Matter of fact, I think he ran out the front door. She was trying to go out there and chase him. He was holding the door shut, and I think she ran around. She was trying to get out the back window, and I think she calmed down and wound up having to go to jail for that incident. And in that time, I think we went with my grandmother for a little while, and then we wound up going to my cousin Janie's house. And then from my cousin Janie's house, I think my mother, she got her situation straightened out, self-defense and stuff like that. And she arranged for my pops to come get us. But that wasn't the first time we stayed with my father, because like I was saying, all throughout our childhood, we was back and forth. I don't think we went maybe 2 or 3 years at the most without living with either one of them. Because like I said, when we first started out, when they first split, we was with my pops. He got in his situation, and we come with my mom's. Then I could remember, I think I was in the 3rd grade, we were with my pops. And then I think we stayed out here for a little while. Then I think the next time I seen him, it probably was like around 12 years old. So it was just a lot of back and forth. And like I said, I don't think maybe we was staying with each, no more than 3 years would go by and we living with the other parent. So, it was just a lot of back and forth. And I could just remember throughout my childhood, you move to another location. It's like you got to fight. You got to prove yourself. People don't know who you is no more. They act like they ain't never see you before. And like my pops used to move around. So when we go to New Jersey, some of the people we didn't know. But when we come back home to Newport News, these the same people that they act like they don't know us. Like, man, we ain't been gone that long. Come on now. So now you got to get back. You got to fight some more. The girls, they liking you. So once you get next to attention, everybody, now you got to scrap. And I can just remember not wanting to fight, but having to fight and wishing I was not fighting all the time. And, that's how the childhood was. So I guess from there, just all the back and forth, all the, like, to me it seemed unstable. I just started developing like a little extra, all that shaking up, all that sizing me up, all that agitating me, man. It started breaking down the barriers in my mind of, I want to say, like, consequence. Usually I'll be thinking about the consequences, but after a while, I think when I was like 13 years old, I stopped thinking about the consequences and I just started doing stuff. Whether it was stealing, around 12, 13 years old. I think I just stopped caring. I stopped thinking about the consequences and I just stopped doing it. And it seemed like when I behaved in that fashion, that I was more accepted. I stopped thinking about the fights I was getting in, and I started, okay, we fight. I stopped thinking about, getting in trouble. I was getting a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, and I'm getting to the point to where, all this stuff that was surrounding me, I used to reject it coming up, but now, I guess, I'm becoming a part of it because here I am, putting myself now in some of these situations that I would have shied away from when I was younger, but now I'm a little bit, I'm with it now. I'm starting to be with it. My name's starting to mean something different around me. I'm starting to, leverage that. I'm trying to make a way for myself. I was into sports. I played football. I ran track. I wrestled for a little bit, both in New Jersey and in Newport News. But I think between the moving back and forth, I never really got totally acclimated to being in one spot. So even though I was fairly well, probably could have been better, I was a little bit undersized. I think, I seen the future in it, but I really didn't see the future in it because I think, when I was, I'm skipping around a little bit. Before I got locked up, I was skinny. Matter of fact, I'm gonna take it back. 9th grade year, man, I was still 5 foot and some change, almost not even 100 pounds, and I started catching a little growth spurt. My father, 6'4", like 2 something at the time. So in the back of my mind, I knew I would get big, but I was skinny, undersized, small, and physically I hadn't developed yet. So, I was always got hot, always put everything I got into it. But, genetically, I think I was a little bit challenged because I was skinny and kind of uncoordinated because I'm still growing into my body, having growth spurts and stuff like that. So, when I did come back to Virginia, I was wrestling in New Jersey. I tried to get on the basketball team. I didn't make it. I got cut. And I think Bailey beat me out for that spot. I get into wrestling because they're in the same season, basketball and wrestling and track. But I got into wrestling. So when I came back to Virginia, I think I was 15 years old, going on 16. I think so, somewhere around there, 15 or 14 going on 15. I think it was 93. Giving up my age, but y'all already know that. I was wrestling, playing football, and I knew I was decent. I knew how to catch good. I wasn't the fastest, but I had some speed, and I was willing to learn. I wasn't scared to get hurt. So at this time, like I say, that inhibition was removed through a lot of the unstableness around me and some of the stuff that I was going through. So I wasn't scared no more. But my size, I wasn't big. I got a lot of heart, but I wasn't the biggest. But I was decent in sports, and I think I did see a future in it, but not really because I didn't lock in on it or focus in on it because I wasn't getting the playing time and I wasn't getting the accolades that come with being one of the best players on the team. So it was like I was on the fence with it because I was still playing sports, still putting a lot into that. But at the same time, now I'm starting to see, the streets, like people selling drugs, making money, people robbing, people making money. And I'm starting to see this, and I'm starting to be drawn to this, I'm starting to get access to firearms and stuff like that. And, I wasn't a full-fledged criminal, but I'm poking my nose around it. I'm out there trying to figure out how to fit in. And I probably would wind up getting hurt because I wasn't, necessarily aiming for nothing. But I just wanted, to fit in, to have my name mean something. I was trying to be a man out here in these streets. I was. And I was just right teetering on the borderline, starting to hang with, friends that might have not been, into sports and into school a little bit more. And I'm starting to lean a little bit towards them, which led me to start getting in trouble. Like I said, we had a firearm. People started knowing I'm carrying firearms around, and it led to a whole different situation. But that was just a small little introduction. I ain't gonna keep getting up too much because I've been up here for a while. So I'm about to shut it down for a little while. I'm about to shut it down. But the next episode, I'm gonna get a little bit deeper. I'm gonna start getting you to these situational stories. That was just a little setup so I could kind of develop who I am, where I'm from, my personality. So when I start taking you on some of these journeys, stuff can make sense. So you know what it is. This is the Letsgettuit podcast, and that's a tour with a U because I always got you in mind. And I am King Sam the Dirtbag. I am. And if you heard something crazy about me, it's probably true. So my case is closed, man. Court is adjourned. And I'm out of here.